Not that light is holy, but that the holy is the light. Only by seeing, by being, we know, rapt, breath stilled, bliss of the heart. Good morning. Welcome to Cross Street Chapel. I'm grateful for your presence here, those who've joined us in person as well as those who are following online. We're testing out, this is the second week of attempting 2 different cameras, so we will see how that pans out. Fingers crossed. We'll find out, and we'll continue to sort of evolve with the times and the technology, which is actually, funnily enough, a sort of key component of today's service. Although you might notice the sermon is more focused on the concept of nothingness and nothing happening. But something is happening right now, and that's our gathering today. And there's many reasons why we might be joined together. We might have come here looking for joy and celebration. We might have come with sorrow and tears in our heart. Perhaps we're looking for some words of wisdom or a chance to connect with one another. Or maybe just simply you're tired and you want a chance to rest with the divine. Whatever it is that's brought you here, I hope you'll find it, and I know that you'll find a warm community. So just as we lit those words, that chalice with the words of Kathleen Rain, we turn to Albert Schweitzer now for a call to worship. You know of the disease in Central Africa called sleeping sickness. There also exists a sleeping sickness of the soul. Its most dangerous aspect is that one is unaware of its coming. That is why you have to be careful. As soon as you notice the slightest sign of indifference, the moment you become aware of the loss of a certain seriousness, of longing, of enthusiasm and zest, take it as a warning. Amen. Let us sing our first hymn in the Green Book, number 136, Our Kindred Fellowship by Marion Franklin Ham, number 136. Let us join together into a time of prayer with these words of the poet Denis Levertov. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky and water bears them. As hawks rest upon air, and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all-surrounding grace. Amen. And please read with me our covenant, which you'll find printed in your order of worship and appearing online. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Our story today is somewhat of a mini homily in and of itself, The Miraculous Picture, written by Barbara Rev'd. During the hot Nebraska summers of my childhood, I spent hours high in my treehouse, devouring the books I found in the small collection my parents had acquired from the estates of various relatives. One of my favorites was a wonder book, Nathaniel Hawthorne's retelling of classical myths. My favorite of those stories was The Miraculous Picture, the story of Baucis and Philemon. This elderly, poor, but generous-hearted couple invite two gods, disguised as beggars, to come into their cottage to rest and eat. The gods keep asking that their bowls be replenished, and the old couple becomes sad and embarrassed because they know the pitcher is empty. But the gods show them otherwise. No matter how often they pour from the pitcher, it is always full. I suppose that as a child, what I liked was the thought of possessing such a pitcher. Much later, I realized that in some sense I did. The story of the miraculous pitcher seems to be telling us that in the realm of the Spirit, there is no such thing as a non-renewable resource. And that's an important concept. Most of us have it backwards. For centuries, we have had it backwards. We have believed that material resources are infinite, but the resources of the Spirit need to be hoarded with care. We act as if the supply of oil can go on forever, but that there are limits to the amount of love that we can give away. How often I have found myself closing off from people in need because I was afraid of being spiritually drained, only to find myself in the driest of deserts. We have arrived at a time in our history when we are beginning to realize that this planet is our only home. We can no longer make a mess of the place where we are and then move on. A species can come to an end. Resources can be used up. All growth is not a sign of health. But I suspect we doubt more than ever the truth of this story of the miraculous pitcher, or of the loaves and fishes. We find it hard to believe that we will find the spiritual nourishment to meet the needs of this chaotic age. The wisdom of the centuries and our own experience tells us otherwise. If we do not let our fears have dominion, we may discover that in the midst of all the pain we find inner strength. In the midst of all bewilderment, we find inner clarity. In the midst of all nourishing one another, we find ourselves nourished. The Miraculous Picture, and a few thoughts on it by Barbara Rev'd. So you're invited now to share your stories, your miraculous pictures, or your finite resources if you do indeed feel drained. If you want to light a candle, please do so. If you have a few words to say, come to the microphone so those who are using the loop system will be able to hear you. But you are, of course, invited to light a candle in silence. And as always, if you want to remain seated, know that your presence here is enough. And these candles are all, as you'll have noticed, not been used before, so it takes a while for them to light if it seems like it's taking forever. Just give it a moment and be patient. I'm lighting this candle. I lit a candle on Wednesday because I'd heard from Allison Sellers, John Sellers' wife, who had said that he had been ill and in hospital, and he'd come out of hospital and was on palliative care. She wrote to me yesterday to say he passed away Friday evening. It was a very comfortable and painless death. We hold John in our hearts. I know many of us will have known him, and some of us wouldn't have. A very kind and generous and gentle man, part of primarily our Wednesday congregation, but also served on our committee. I was really grateful to have known him, and although I am sorry that he's passed, I'm really honored to have had him in my life. And our prayers, of course, go out to Allison and her family.
Well, this is a sort of personal thought. Obviously, I think of Robin every day and talk to him and so on, but his birthday is Wednesday, so I'm sending an extra special lot of light and love to him right now.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken in our hearts and in words. We have been trying sort of different things vis-a-vis music and sort of, playing with the service in certain ways. So our next hymn, the words will be well known to us, "Divinity is round us, never gone." Now this feels like it might be overstepping the mark, and if I've committed some Unitarian cardinal sin, because I know that the tune that we often sing to it has sort of a measure of significance for Unitarians and for Cross Street Chapel particularly. But I thought it might be interesting to try something else, a slightly different, not slightly, but a different tune. And this can sort of sometimes disrupt our sort of way of thinking and actually help us really emphasize and acknowledge the words that we're singing and not just sort of run through them as the tune Manchester College sort of encourages us to do. So we've got a different tune for today for Sophia Leon Paz's "Divinity is Round Us." I'm going to ask for a B flat. I have a bit of a cold, by the way, so I'm hoping to sort of keep my distance a little bit. It might also affect my singing. That's my excuse this week. So, so we'll just go sort of just a bit line by line. So, divinity is round us, never gone.
Divinity is round us never gone, from earth or star.
Your turn.
From earth or star.
Good. We want to try and bring those two lines together.
Divinity is round us never gone, from earth or star, from life or death, from good or even wrong.
Your turn on that.
From life or death, from good or even wrong.
Good. And then the last little bit.
In all we are.
Your turn.
In all we are.
Can we then just bring those two lines together?
From life or death, from good or even wrong, in all we are.
Very good. How do we feel? Do we feel relatively comfortable with it? I'm going to ask Aaron to play through it completely once, and then we'll begin again on that first verse. Thank you very much. I was going to say, do write in. Our next reading is by John Killinger, a Baptist minister that I was quite fascinated with sort of early on in my ministry. He wrote a book called Leave It to the Spirit back in, I think it was the late 60s. And at the time that there's all of this sort of really fascinating sort of artistic expressions and sort of sort of an avant-garde movement and sort of deconstruction, he brings that to the question of worship and sort of explores, well, why is it that we have a sermon? What's the intention, and how can we maintain that intention of purpose within a contemporary context or setting? This is a segment that he wrote in that book called Games. We have usually been prone to think of play as having an unreality about it, as being wholly illusory. We say to a child, stop playing and concentrate on what you're doing, as though the playing were of a different realm from the doing. We call people back from playing, as though playing really served no function aside from entertainment. But think now, remember, in the midst of a period of concentration and work in your life, some moment of playing, of becoming intensely relaxed and open to the world. It was a time for the opposite of concentration, the opposite of being narrow and restricted. It was a time for exposing the self, for being wide enough to receive the world and its messages. Maybe it was a vacation in the sunshine by a glittering lake. Maybe it was a trip to the mountains. Maybe it was a time of reading and lounging and talking to someone you find very engaging and exciting. When it ended, when you went back to your concentration and narrowness, was the playtime utterly nullified? Was it as if it had never existed? Or did you not carry something new with you into the concentration and work, something invigorating and nourishing, upon which you continued to feed in inner feeding grounds long after the actual vacation itself had ended? As Harvey Cox points out in Feast of Fools, fact and fantasy are not really so distinct and separable. There is a fantastical quality about factuality and a factuality about fantasy that cannot be divided neatly and easily. People tend to use their time of fantasy as their design time. That is, they reorder their life through fantasy. And this surely carries over into their world of normal realities. If there were no moments of fantasy, one would be utterly at the mercy of contingencies in the world. One would merely submit to whatever happened and to whatever state of affairs happened to be in existence. Section from Games by John Killinger. And speaking of this sort of 1960s avant-garde, we turn now to a period of meditation, using these words from John Cage, from the beginning of what was called his Lecture on Nothing. I am here, and there is nothing to say. If among you are those who wish to get somewhere, let them leave at any moment. What we require is silence. But what silence requires is that I go on talking. Give any one thought a push. It falls down easily. But the pusher and the pushed produce that entertainment called a discussion. Shall we have one later? Or we could simply decide not to have a discussion. Whatever you like. But now, there are silences. And the words, make, help make. The silences. I have nothing to say. And I am saying it. And that is poetry, as I need it. And so let us enter into a period of silence and speaking from that still small voice, time for meditation, reflection, contemplation, and personal prayer. Thank you, Aaron. We come now to our next hymn in the Green Book, number 50, Not Always on the Mount, by Frederick Lucien Hosmer, hymn number 50. Back in September, I spoke on technology and modern living and the challenges therein, with this particular emphasis on the notion of doom scrolling. As I said, when you get in a bit of a cycle of like just seeing sort of bad things, and it almost makes you want to keep looking and keep looking and keep looking. And the other sort of more recent term as well is to go out and touch grass, to sort of encounter reality in the world and make sure that you actually have a presence here in a material world and not just the world of ones and zeros. Although I held on to a lot of what was said, it was fascinating. I had a conversation with someone afterwards who I don't want to say they challenged me, but it was a great exploration of their relationship to technology, my own, and somewhat of the generational divides. I grew up, I was thinking as well of the Douglas Adams quote about technology, that anything you're born with, anything that exists around when you're born is natural and just part of the world. Anything that is created before the age of 30 is some amazing wonderment of science, and then anything that's created after 30 is abhorrent and unnatural to the order of things. And I'm now at that stage where actually there's more and more sort of things that have been created in that sort of post-30s life. So I can sometimes count myself amongst those who feel sort of perplexed by the challenges of modern life. But this individual, particularly sort of this notion of, I grew up at a time where the internet existed. It was sort of, I suppose, within that sort of 30-year period, so it was a bit of a wonderment. Computers were the natural order. And the aspect of having a sort of a by life that was both sort of in the world and in technology existed. Nowadays, there's sort of younger people who talk about sort of not seeing that separation quite as clearly, that they do, they see themselves and they see their online life as being, I suppose, some element or extension of their being and the nature of being in the material world as well. Something I have difficulty relating to, but I want to sort of be aware of and to recognize and to honor. So this whole conversation really opened my mind to this sort of the challenges of talking about technology here in a space, a sort of intergenerational space where I have people who are younger than me that have had sort of significant points of contact with technology, people who are older who might have a different relationship to it, and then myself and my own sort of challenging relationship with it. This isn't unusual, of course. These challenges have always existed. Not just in the modern use of social media. We're looking, of course, at the banning of social media for young people in Australia. The sort of frustrations young people have and feeling like it's removing sort of an integral part of their life. But going back, my childhood, video games and television use was the sort of big cause and concern and the risk about sort of violent video games leading to violence in real life. But it goes back even further. I was remembering how Tchaikovsky was around at the time that the telephone was sort of coming about. And there's this great story about him making a phone call or having a phone call with a close friend who was cities away. And the realization for him that he could hear his friend's voice, but acknowledge the distance between them was genuinely distressing for him. And he had to cut the conversation short because he could feel his heart just beating faster and faster. You can go back as far as Socrates, who held general disdain for the written language and thought that it would lead to people having memory issues. So I'm not trying to make one point or another regarding our modern technology. It's a tool. It can be used for good or ill. It can also be helpful for us as well as it can hinder us. Many of these consequences or challenges, both beneficial and detrimental, we may not know for some time. One of the elements, though, that has been sort of talked a lot about recently is our relationship not just to smartphones, but particularly to what are called short-form videos, the videos that you might find on TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. They can be anything from just a few seconds or 30 seconds to maybe even a couple minutes. But otherwise, they're quite short. They're quite sort of little morsels that are fed to us bit by bit. And of course, if you have an algorithm behind that, that's a whole other conversation I'm not necessarily going to touch on today. But we have this perception that short-form videos affect concentration and affect focus. And there are some studies coming out now that are showing the possibility of some correlation. There was, for instance, the University in Beijing tested the effect of short-form videos and what's called cognitive reflection, which is one's ability to sort of break out of, and I forget the name of the journalist who I read this in, but she talked about autopilot mode. If you hear a question and you just have the answer and you throw it out, sort of if you think of like the 1% questions, sometimes the ones that you have to sort of think about just a little bit that you might get caught up on, little tongue tweezers or riddles or such. These questions cause us to break out of autopilot mode, break away from our intuition and actually reflect and think with focus on these questions. So the University of Beijing tested, I think it was about 70 or so students. They had them watch short-form videos. One group watched those videos, another group read for half an hour, and then they did this test. And there was a correlation between those who did the short-form videos doing more poorly as on these cognitive reflection tests. But they wanted to explore this even a bit more, so they did the test again, and they broke up the people that used the videos in different ways. They tested what was being shown, whether it was something like science experiments or whether it was animals, and they also tested they had ones that were just sort of basically videos, like a half-hour video of short-form videos that the students had no control over. They just have to watch the whole thing. And then others where the students actually had control, and they could choose to swipe up and change, just like many people on Instagram and TikTok and so forth do. Just out of curiosity, who thinks the students that just passively sat and watched the videos did worse than the ones that had control over their phones? Who thinks it's the other way around, that it was those who... Have you seen this test? Because that's exactly what they found, was that those who actively had control over their TikTok and could swipe past the videos, they actually did worse than the ones who were subjected to watching just a half-hour video, even though those videos were just tiny, small bite videos. the reporter that talked about this had this fantastic expression, or a fantastic observation, which is, boredom is cognitively intense. I think of it in a sense that if you have the control to sort of swipe past something that is uninteresting, what you're actually doing is you're sort of training your focus to be shorter and shorter. If you have a 30-second video and after 5 seconds you say, oh, this isn't for me, you're sort of training yourself to just really, focus on those 5 seconds. And then if you're given a task where you then have to actually focus longer, or you have to break out of that cycle, it's more and more difficult. So in some way, in some sort of strange way, having less control meant that people had sort of a better focus, or a better ability to break out of their sort of autopilot mode. And like that great expression, boredom is cognitively intense. It's actually challenging when you are bored. And think about that just for a moment. Think about a time when you were bored. And maybe it's now. I don't know. But how was that experience? It was perhaps excruciating. It was perhaps aggravating. It might have even been somewhat painful. I often reflect, there's sort of two ways in which my boredom go. There's sort of 1-2 punch. First, I do sort of experience some sense of painfulness. Oh, I want to get out of this place. And then eventually, I suppose my mind forces me to wander away from what's being talked about or brought up. I'm not sure if other people have similar experiences, but I know for me, that's the encounter that I experience. And, this is, I think, one of the great joys in boredom, and great joys in this is, you think of John Killinger writing about games, and that sort of defocusing, breaking apart of like that concentration, allowing your mind to wander and to explore. One of the great joys that I have as a minister, as a preacher, is that opportunity to just let my mind wander and let it pick up things that it encounters, and to make those weird, ball bearing in a washing machine connections, that it bounces from one thing to the next. And sometimes a little spark flies, and a bit of insight and a bit of wisdom that is usually a surprise for me comes about. It's really a great joy. John Killinger doesn't just write about games, he also writes about silence, and this was another reading that I've used at times. We must learn to use silence, not as emptiness, but as communication. We are embarrassed by it. We fidget and twist and squirm in our too tight mental underwear, because we have never learned its properties and possibilities. We have always lived with a fear of gaps. We carry an odd bucket of assorted hems and haws, ah-wells and yesies, to stuff up any drafty chinks to find in conversation or speeches. But we need to be reminded that silences are the cracks in the dome of eternity, whence wisdom can seep through. We need, in the church, to come to a place where we can be silent. I might go further to say that maybe the church needs to be a place where we can be bored, in which case I hope I'm doing a good job. Allowing our minds to wander, allowing ourselves to feel bored and to respond to it is so important. It opens up these new avenues of thought. It makes connections that we might not be aware of otherwise. And it just allows us to rest at times. Life is so intense and so full on, and, with that doom-scrolling in mind, so despondent, that having an opportunity to break away from that, to enter into a period of tedium, may not just be helpful, but it might be necessary for our well-being. On Wednesday, I read another reading that I've done here before by Tricia Hersey, who wrote a book called The Nap Ministry. Tricia writes very deeply about our need to have this break from what she calls grind culture, have this break from the challenges of life, and to have the rest. And to reclaim it as a sign of our full humanity. When we're so often pushed to produce more and produce better, she's calling us to just take a minute and breathe. And she sees this not just in the context of something that is good for us, but she sees it in the wisdom of her ancestors, and she sees it as a response to the violence that her ancestors encountered through the slave trade. So it's so significant that we can take these lessons, that we can sort of help to work and build a society that includes and encourages rest and respite and boredom, and gives that its due, because it is necessary. Just like Sophia Leon reminds us, divinity is around us. It's not just in those perfected ones. It's not just in love made whole, but it's in the mistakes. It's in the tiredness. It's in the tedium and the boredom. So it's in this boredom that we break the silence, the random thinking, that we give up control, and we allow God or the universe or what have you to inspire us. Amen. A few notices before we sing our final hymn. I'm afraid I can't remember who it is that's giving our Friday lunchtime recital, but it's the last Friday of the month at 1 p.m. Our recitals are free to attend, but we are grateful for any contributions which go to the artists to recognize their time, talent, and energy. And then the next big announcement as well is that our AGM will be next month, March 8th. I've sent out an email notification on our mailing list. I'll make sure that anyone else who's not on that but is a member receives the notice. This is an opportunity to learn about what the chapel has done the past year, what it hopes to do for the year upcoming, and we look at the accounts and we approve our next committee. So please do consider joining us for that. There's a bring and share meal, so it's an opportunity to share and fellowship that way as well. Please let us know if you're able to bring something and if you have any sort of allergies or dietary requirements. Are there any announcements or notices from the congregation? Well then, also, do we have anyone to help with tea and coffee today? Thank you, Richard, and Adam, if you... Let us then sing our final hymn, number 33, Emily Lenore Lookthorne's Do You Hear, O My Friends, hymn number 33. Fantastic music. Thank you, Neat and Sonia, for helping to set up, along with Joe, and for greeting. Thank you to Richard and Adam for the tea and coffee that we're about to enjoy. Thank you, William, for the IT. And thank you to everyone for creating and sharing worship today. We close with these words of Anish Nin. We do not grow absolutely, chronologically. We grow sometimes in one direction and not in another, unevenly. We grow partially. We are relative. We are mature in one realm and childish in another. The past, present, and future mingle and pull us backward, forward, or fix us in the present. We are made up of layers, cells, and constellations. Amen.